welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzie, and we've got you for you today. First topic we'll be going over is Elly De La Cruz's season for the Cincinnati Reds. Really a breakout season and how well he's done this year, plus the impact on the Reds, all that kind of stuff. After that, we'll be going over the Nationals preparing to sell at the trade deadline, the Dodgers and Phillies upcoming series, the Cy Young leaderboard, and then also what teams have the most to prove before the All-Star break. Now, before we do get into that, I'd like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link at gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get into the show for today. All right, so I just want to say before we get into the show, I am a little bit under the weather, so if you do hear my voice being a little, a little more, a little weirder than usual, or me sniffling, sometimes I do apologize. It's just what happens, these times of year. So, going into our first segment, we'll be talking about Elly De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds, so let's get into it. So, coming up last year from AAA, Elly was someone that I, and many baseball fans as well, have had their eyes on for a long, long time. This is a guy I've known about for a significant amount of time, as a prospect, as an international signee, and we had just heard basically about how much of a athletic freak he was. This is a guy coming up that was always obviously this tall, had this body, had this insane speed, this insane power, this insane hit tool all around, and he was really looked at as just an outlier in baseball. I mean, you have these kind of guys who are tall. Of course, you obviously have Aaron Judge, who's the main example. You also have Sean Jelly from the San Francisco Giants as a 6'9" pitcher. Of course, you have legends of the game like Randy Johnson as well, but seeing a guy like this at shortstop was insane, and the thing was also he was pretty good at fielding. He could, again, and he had a lot of talent as well, so he was really kind of a mutant and just someone that really defied logic with how talented he was for his height and just the way he played shortstop. So he was someone that was always very interesting to baseball fans, was someone that always was of high priority to Reds fans, making sure that his career would live up to his full potential. And now coming up, I mean, man, has he been fantastic. Again, this is a guy that Reds fans have looked at for a little while, especially in those darker times in 2021, 2020, 2022. Sorry about that. As a guy who could really, not save the franchise, quote unquote, but give them a glimmer of hope. You had all these big free agent signings, all these big trades, guys like Nick Castellanos left in free agency. And after that, you were really into a deep rebuild, trading a lot of your guys, again, letting them walk. And you had a guy like Elly De La Cruz being able to go through that farm system, be able to just come up and seeing him as, again, like a glimmer of hope for this franchise. And now that he's finally up playing this well, I'd say Reds fans are pretty happy. And I just did want to go over his season, the impact of the Reds franchise, and just him overall. So, let me get into it. So, coming up last year, he definitely did show some prowess. I mean, he did have 2 WAR. He only played, he played in just under 100 games. So 2 WAR is pretty nice for that, especially for a rookie. But, the hitting wasn't great. I mean, he had an 84 weighted runs created plus, which is not great. Also, his WOBA and his expected WOBA were practically the exact same, so it wasn't exactly like he was getting insanely unlucky or something. So you look at that. I mean, also, he had 144 strikeouts in 98 games, which is bad. But at the same time, all young players are going to struggle with strikeouts. I mean, really, unless you're Juan Soto, all young players, when coming up, are going to struggle with strikeouts. That's just one of the parts of becoming a big leaguer from the minor leagues. So I didn't really see too much of that. But the walk percentage was kind of low at only 8%. And also, the ISO was kind of low for someone like him, under 2. So, that was also, something. But when you looked at him, you saw a very raw player, a player that had a lot of talent, no doubt, was very athletic, was, again, an insane athlete, but just someone that was very raw and, and you were hoping that those abilities would come out of him and he would finally break out. And man, has he done that this year. I mean, he's been absolutely fantastic so far for this Reds team. His weighted runs created plus now is at a 124, which obviously is a significant jump from last year, 40 points. Now, again, if you don't know what weighted runs created plus is, it's the stat I use for hitting. It's advanced, but it's advanced, quote unquote, but not really. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's just, 100 is average, so if you're above 100, you're whatever percent above average. So in this case, De La Cruz would be 24% above average, and it just factors in a lot of different things like ballpark and stuff like that. So I've always used it and I really enjoy it. So that is the stat I use. But yeah, obviously Cruz has been a great hitter in that case as well. You also look at some of the percentages, which are interesting. I mean, the barrel percentage is up 4% from last year, which is obviously good. I mean, even though he did get a cup of coffee in the bigs, he still did get a good amount of time there. So it's not exactly like we're taking these stats with a grain of salt. No, I still think there's something, we can still take something away from them. So I think that it's fair enough to do that. Ground ball percentage is also down 5%, which is a big deal. I think that was one of really the big concerns with Elly, was that would he lift the ball enough. And at the same time with him, he can hit ground balls. He can get away with it because he is so fast. It's kind of like a Trey Turner kind, where even if you do hit a little bit more ground balls than the regular, you're allowed to really as a hitter because you're so fast that you can beat out ground balls that a lot of people couldn't. So even though his ground ball percentage was a little high, I think that it was okay for the type of player he is. But still, even with it being lower, that's still fantastic. Hard hit percentage is up 3+% as well from last year, which is fantastic. Soft hitting percentage is down from last year as well. You also look at some other stats as well that really show how much he has improved and how much that he really has become a better player. His K percentage is down 6%, which is honestly fantastic. I mean, really, really nice, showing a lot of development from last year. The thing that's crazy, though, is he still leads the league in strikeouts, and his strikeout percentage is down 6%, so that's kind of showing you what kind of player he is. He might be a 3 true outcomes player, but hey, man, look. The thing about De La Cruz is, and I was going to touch on this later, but I think it's a good time to pick it up now. Before I do that, by the way, though, also, walk percentage is up 3%. Again, showing a lot more development. The thing about De La Cruz is, if he hits a single, that single is going to turn into a double, and that double may turn into a triple. Why? Because he can steal bases. The reason I want to talk about De La Cruz today, because I really could have talked about De La Cruz any day with the season he's having, was because he had 45 stolen bases yesterday, which set a Reds franchise record of stolen bases before the All-Star break, which is a significant record, I'd say. I mean, I know stolen bases have become a little bit undervalued in the game these past few years. They've kind of brought it back, but you remember the golden ages of baseball, early 2000s, late 1990s in general, 1980s. Stolen bases were a huge thing, and it wasn't a stat that was taken lightly. So the fact that Elly De La Cruz passed a ton of legends in ranch franchise history for this record, I mean, is pretty incredible and shows just how well he is at stealing bases. I mean, he has 45 currently. He has a very good chance of hitting 50 before the All-Star break, maybe even 60 before the trade deadline, which would be insane. I wouldn't be surprised if De La Cruz gets 100 stolen bases at the end of the year. Now, they could potentially shut him down at the end of the year with stolen bases just so he doesn't get hurt, because I don't really think they'll be competing this year for a multitude of reasons, mainly injuries. I've talked about it many times in my show, but other than that, you don't really want to be having him stealing bases if you're really not into it. It's really not worth anything to potentially get a long-term injury for him. So, but I mean, again, you look at this guy right now, you look at some of the players he's up against with that stolen base record. I mean, the first one for me that comes to mind is another great Reds middle infielder, Barry Larkin. This is a guy who had 51 stolen bases in 1995, was a consistent all-star, was very fast, and Elly De La Cruz is, beating a guy like that who was on this franchise. Pete Rose stole a lot of bases as well, so I think having this record shows how good Elly is at that, and bringing back stolen bases really is such an exciting time for baseball. As a baseball fan, I love it, and I think it just brings so much more to the game. I think it just brings so many exciting elements to it, and again, I'm very excited that it is back. So Elly really has just been an incredible player this year, really has broken out and been so fantastic. And again, I think there are some deficiencies within his game. He strikes out too much, doesn't walk that much, but at the same time, the thing about him is, you may say, okay, what I'm trying to get at is, he's a player that, again, if he hits a single, that turns into a double, and that could potentially turn into a triple. He's so fast, he's so good at stealing, everyone knows he's going to steal, but there's nothing you can do about it. And that's where a lot of his value comes from. So I think he's such a valuable player in that asset that a lot of that won't show up on a stat screen. I can confidently say that as someone who loves advanced statistics. That is very true. And just, man, the impact he has had on this Reds franchise is undeniable. The way they've really just turned the culture around from a few years ago when they were losing a lot has been really, really great. And yeah, has just done an absolutely fantastic job with this team has given Reds fans a lot of hope for the future. And yeah, if I'm a Reds fan, I'm very excited where my team can go. And I'm very excited about Elly at the helm of it. And also, overall, in baseball, I think Elly has really become a face of baseball really quickly into his second year as a writing all-star. He's already doing promos with the MLB social media accounts, doing the thing about going to the MLB store in Manhattan. So, yeah, a ton of nice things are happening with Elly right now. He's becoming a face of the game. Seems like an amazing guy. Already knows English pretty well that he's doing in interviews. It's pretty incredible for a young guy coming over from the Dominican Republic. I mean, I think people really underestimate how hard learning another language is. So whenever a player does it, I give my hats off to them. It's something that takes a lot of work, and it's, I don't even know a second language, so I give them all the credit in the world for doing that and being a professional athlete. So obviously a very smart guy, again, a face of the game, and yeah, it's just having a great season. He's really helping out this Reds team. I think their future is insanely bright because of him. They're going to get back guys like Matt McLain, Novelli Marte for a full season, Christian Encarnacion, Strand that are really going to help out this team. And I think, as I've said multiple times in the show, the Reds are going to be a team not to mess with within the next few years. And I really do think they are going to be a fantastic team next year. And I think they would have been that team this year if suspensions didn't happen and injuries didn't happen. So, yeah, that is our first segment here for today, talking about Elly De La Cruz and his season for the Cincinnati Reds. We'll be moving into our second segment here, which is going to be talking about the Nationals and the reports that they are prepared to sell at the deadline. So yeah, we'll be getting into that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.